you have it. The champion of the insurance world joins us, Paul Pukis.
Yeah.
I can just imagine you running up some stairs, throwing some, punches into the air.
I did walk up the stairs to the studio today. It's 80 steps.
You really did?
Yes, I did.
I don't know that anyone's ever done that before.
They are actually probably the cleanest stairs I've ever seen, which would lead me to believe that no one walks up or down those stairs.
You really walked up the stairs?
I sure did.
Oh, that's great.
We should start doing that, Ben.
Not a chance. Paul Pukis joins us, Capital Asset Protection Advisor with Mosaic Insurance Alliance and author of Protect This. Protect your assets.
You bet.
Protect
we
them
got
all,
to protect
man.
everything.
Yeah, so let's talk about protect yourself just a little bit, because you guys reveal 373 ways to protect the safety and well-being of really what matters to you most.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you start getting into insurance, there's, at the top of the show, I talked about this mission. What are people trying to accomplish? And with insurance, I think a lot of people are just like, I just want to save money.
Yeah.
And it's almost like ingrained in people's heads because of all the marketing that goes on out there with, I just want to save money. That's all I want to do. We see it in the mortgage world. I just want the lowest rate, and nothing else matters. But the truth is that can cost you sometimes. It isn't always the best way to go.
Yeah. There's a lot of large companies out there spending billions of dollars in marketing. Together, a couple of the big direct writers where you would just contact them directly are spending your premium dollars in advertising to try and brainwash the public that price is the only distinguishing factor when it comes to coverage. And it's simply not the case. I mean, price matters. There's no way to get around that. It is very important. But I can't think of any client of mine that has been upset that they've paid $8.37 more per month when they had a huge claim and it was handled very well by a preferred company instead of a direct company that's saying, yeah, sorry, you didn't read your policy very well. That's not covered. I can't think, and I doubt that anyone's going to challenge that in the future either.
Yeah, it's interesting to think that, you talk about this brainwash of everything's about price. And then as a professional in all the industries that we talk about, and I think a lot of listeners too who do value professionals, it's all when you start saying, well, there's more value than price. Sometimes you see people, or it feels like, well, I'm going to be very expensive. Now that's not always a bad thing, but that's not really what finding the right value means. I mean, like you said, it could be $8 to make sure you're doing the right thing.
Yeah. And in a lot of situations, we are less expensive because we've reviewed the situation and we found what coverage is adequate and appropriate. Where, some other places might just be taking what the cookie cutter is and applying that to your situation. So it's not always about that. That's some of the value add. I mean, my goal is to make price. You've got to be in the ballpark. Absolutely. At any time, you've got to be in the ballpark to continue a conversation with someone. But my job is to make coverage and the protection so important that price continues to become less and less significant. And that's the goal, where you take a look, it says, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you did mention to me that coverage for your family was important. I know price is important too, but if I can get in this price range with the coverage that you're requesting, can I count on you to do business with us? And those are the type of conversations we want to have.
And a direct phone number where if you have questions, and I mean,
where you know who you're talking to every time.
Yeah, you can come stop by my office, and I'm not hiding behind a little green lizard.
And a birthday card. I got a birthday card.
There you go.
But that stuff's important. So when people go through this, I think what's difficult about is with insurance, when you look at this price versus value, oftentimes is the timing of when people are purchasing it. Because when do people get car insurance? When they're like sitting at the car dealership going, I need car insurance to basically drive this thing off the lot. Right. Or in a mortgage situation, well, we close in 3 days and my insurance, the mortgage lender says I need an insurance policy. Yeah. It's very difficult to take that professional, the attitude, or for a client to want the professionalism when it's kind of like, well, it's now. I mean, you need this right now. How do you help people understand how to maybe time their insurance purchase better?
Well, there's a couple of different ways to look at that. Glenn brought it up in planning. Even with the divorce situation, you've got the the time before the divorce happens, the time after, and the type of planning that has to go on. Your next guest, Lynn, will be up here talking about, home purchases. That's what she does. And we talked about that before being on the air, about how you need to plan for that type of stuff, because you're putting yourself in a disadvantage by waiting till the last minute. But that's human nature. Most of us are procrastinators by nature. But having a professional advise you, starting from the real estate agent, who's really the primary driving force in a home purchase transaction, all the way down to insurance, which is typically the last piece of that, people that can advise you to be on top of things is a big benefit. You talked about car insurance, and Glenn mentioned time to review stuff. The best clients aren't always the folks that are sitting there Saturday night at the car dealership buying a car and now need insurance, because that probably means they didn't have insurance before. And the state of Washington, you're going to be paying the highest premiums in the state because you didn't have prior insurance. That's the way they kind of offset the requirement of carrying coverage in this state. Most people, buying a new car is a great opportunity and a good chance to review what they currently have. And so that would be a good opportunity to take a look at that type of stuff to make sure coverage is still correct.
So this timing, it seems that there are times in a person's life where insurance comes up. Most people, I guess the reason you have insurance so you don't have to think about it every day, right?
That'd be the best way.
It's kind of that eliminates some of the worry, but there are these times, whether it's, whether you're refinancing your loan, whether you're buying a house, whether you're buying a car, whether you're creating a financial plan, or reviewing your financial plan, or if they work with somebody like you, reviewing your insurance plan.
There's definitely triggering events, and you start out from if you start out kind of from how we grow up, you've got combining households. So you've got a marriage. That is typically a fantastic time to look at putting things together, combining stuff. Unfortunately, 45 to 50% of that ends in divorce.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky, according to Heather. To the boyfriend out there, she's getting prepared. And
if you're together for less than 10 years, he can't take my 401k. I learned that today, too.
That's right. But you've got a plan. Divorce situations is a fun one to go through for insurance. But Glenn can coach someone through that. Next thing is buying a house. Then a young driver getting added to the policy. Those are all triggering events that would cause someone, if you're not doing annual reviews with your agent on a regular basis.
Paul, we have a couple minutes left. We're here with Paul Pukis, Capital Asset Protection Advisor with Mosaic Insurance Alliance and the author of Protect Yourself. So, you go through this review when the time is right. What are some of the things you review? A lot of it is just, is there enough insurance? Is there too much insurance?
Yeah, what's changed? That's the biggest thing. You start a policy one day out of the year. Sometimes it's 6 months. And that policy stays in force until you as the client do something to cancel it. Either you don't pay for it or you make a change to the policy. The insurance company has no legal way to make a change to that policy after it's in force if you do everything you're supposed to do. They don't know that something in your life has changed. They don't know that you inherited mom or dad's home. They passed away or something and now the home's yours. There's things like that. You bought a new car. There's stuff the insurance company needs to be aware of. That's the conversation you need to have with your agent to make sure stuff is up to date.
There's we actually just had a long talk about this on one of our videos about being an active client. And Lynn can probably attest to this in a little bit when we start getting into buying a house. But there's this element of a client needs to be in an active relationship with their lender or with their real estate agent or their insurance agent if they want to get the most out of it. Mm-hmm. And like all relationships, the less you put into it, probably the less you're going to get out of it. And I think that's just a really key aspect. And, it's that Jerry Maguire, help me, help you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And let me caveat that with, we're not looking for folks to call us every day to ask questions. There's obviously a limit to what we can do, but you're absolutely correct. When it comes down to someone, we talked about it at our meeting yesterday. How do you deliver world-class service to our clients? And it boiled down to two things that we came up with. First is you make the customer happy, and you do that by making them understand what you just went over. Insurance is a confusing industry. Aside from people knowing I got to pay my premium to make sure that my bank's not mad at me for, missing coverage, but we believe that we can deliver world-class service by making the client or allowing the client to understand the process, the transaction that just occurred. And typically when someone understands something as convoluted as insurance, they're typically happy with what's going on. And that's how we believe we can deliver that when the client calls in to ask questions.
Well, Paul, asking those questions, I think, is probably something that a lot of people, the hard part, I think, is a lot of people don't know the questions to ask. And, so the element of, taking the time, writing a book, that raises questions, which is good because it at least gives people a baseline of which you can get a basic understanding,
yeah,
and then carry that through into some deeper detail into the things that actually do matter to you.
Right. It's the changes in their life that cause them to call and say, hey, how do I cover this? Then let us ask the questions that pertain to how the insurance works around that asset.
Yeah. Good. That's great. Thanks a lot, Paul. Thanks for joining us. Stick around for a little bit. We'll have you back here at the end of the show with everybody. But coming up next, real estate continues to be on people's minds and on the cover of the Seattle Times today, in case you didn't get the paper, or looked at your phone, your iPad, or your computer. That's where it was. Lynn Robertson's going to join us now, broker and owner of YourSeattleHomeTeam.com. We'll be right back after this break.